DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, thanks for joining us again and again. The full podcast version of the show is going to kick off next week. Lachlan will be back by then. In the meantime, we're putting together a whole lot of interviews for you. And if you are liking what you're looking at and enjoying what you're listening to, then please hit that subscribe button, especially on the DSPN YouTube channel. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers. Share us, like us, leave a comment as well. We love hearing from you. And once the secretary gets around to it, which is me, we'll try to reply as many as possible. We thought today we'd have a good old round ball football chat, and there's no better person, I don't think, in this country to talk football with than my old mate Miles Davis. We began a program called The House of Football. It was about 24, 25 years ago now. The very first ever live football show was on Sky TV. We've been great mates ever since. Even if we sit on opposing sides of the field in terms of the teams that we support, it's a very long-winded way to say Happy New Year and welcome back, mate.
Yeah, we said Happy New Year last week, but then
say
again,
it every week, mate.
Senility is kicking in for you, so I'll let you off that one. It's funny, interesting, you know, that we're sort of apart and close, but we're very close in the league. We'll talk about the Premiership later on, but we got to kick off, mate, and I'd love to get your thoughts on Costa Barbarouses. 100 goals now in the A-League, just a phenomenal performance.
Yeah, 370 odd games, Miles. So it's about 1 and 3.5, or let's round it up, maybe 1 and 4. And I think for any striker, I've always thought 1 and 3 is a hell of a return. You know, 100 league goals in any competition, you know, you've got to take your hat off to him. Look, I've given him a bit of stick over the years, and especially 4 or 5 years ago where I thought he was running out, and that was kind of going to be the end of him. But no, look, the last couple of years, he's done a Sean Johnson, hasn't he? He's just played out of his brain. And a penalty last night, which is a crucial 3 points for the Phoenix. But just on him, you look at the goals that he's scoring last year, he's attacking at pace, he's running really good lines, he's getting into position, he's scoring left foot, right foot, and he's also... I go back to that beautiful headed ball that he put across to get that equaliser in the playoff game. Of course, the Phoenix ended up losing that game. But what I'm trying to say is he's playing complete at the moment. So, yeah, I got nothing but praise for the guy.
Yeah, well, one thing I'll say is that if you mentioned Sean Johnson, you mentioned that, you mentioned Tim Southey and that, if you want your career revived, just get Devlin to write you off. And it's guaranteed. I've been waiting for you to slag me so I can make a comeback in my dotage. I think back and I can remember taking my kid, my youngest of whom, by the way, turns 22 today. But I can remember 16 years ago going to North Harbour Stadium for the Chatham Cup final and Kosta scoring for my beloved Wellington Olympic, the winner in that game. And, you know, he'd have been a whippersnapper then. And there he is. You know, you look at his career, the way it's gone. I did see a comment this morning actually on Twitter, or X if you prefer, that said we talked about Chris Wood, but then tried to put Costa as maybe even better his achievement.
Oh, please stop it.
Exactly.
Stop it.
I love the.
And Costa would be the first to put his hand up and say that.
He would.
Of course he
would.
But
in his
environment,
in the league that he's played in, the guy's a phenomenon. You know, he's won what 3 or 4 titles that he's won there. He's scoring goals. He's still scoring them at the age that he is now, and a fantastic servant for not just for the Phoenix, but also for the A-League.
Look, I just like the way that, you know, he's a really decent man as well. And, you know, despite the fact that I've given him a bit of stick, he always comes on, always is happy to be interviewed and everything. And is, you know, and just says to me a lot about the character of the guy. Before we get on to the Premier League, and we'll also obviously mention Chris Wood there. But valuable 3 points for the Phoenix too, because it was starting to look as though that gap, you know, to the top 6, and it's a generous playoff format in the A-League, the top 6, but it was just starting to think, okay, you're not picking up points here. It's going to be really hard to actually make those up. Auckland FC, though, have just shot out of the gate, haven't they? Look, they've had a couple of bad results, 0-4 at home, but on the weekend, that 3-0 win was spectacular, and the crowd's still coming, Miles. We had Luke Combs, a couple of nights sold out at Eden Park up here. We had Sail GP on. We had Motorsport at 2 different venues, and still $14,500 turn up at 5 o'clock on the Saturday to watch Auckland FC. They're doing it right.
Well, it's been consistent. $14,500, apart from the local derby, which I think was almost double that one. And that just goes to show how important for New Zealand football, and probably for the A-League as well, is to have that derby and how quickly
Great point.
it's taken off. They really are. I mean, as a Phoenix fan, there's a little part of me hopes that they fall over a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, look, there's room here to jump ship like I did if you want.
No, I'm not. I thought it's good for New Zealand football. And so unless they're playing the Phoenix, I'm happy for them to win. I'm not a treacherous dog like you and so many others. Ricardo Ball, if you're listening,
yeah,
another one that's gone.
Yeah, he was there with his shirt on. Yes, he was. Yeah.
They've got.
Noel Barkley's another one, mate. If we were name dropping, Barkley's in there in the lounge.
Exactly, mate. Yeah, they've got no integrity, no morals.
Man United fans, all three of us, mate. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Hey. Need I say more?
You'll
be supporting Liverpool next year.
Oh,
anyway,
stop it, man.
What I was thinking as well, though, is I mean, they're obviously, I think they're title contenders. At first you thought, oh, maybe this is just the newness of it. But they've played a few games now, and there doesn't seem to be any failing. You mentioned the 4-0 loss, but any side can come up with one of those. Newcastle lost 4-1 over the week.
That's right.
So, and they've been on a good run. So I'm not going to write them off for that. I really think they are contenders. The Phoenix are really, they'd obviously lost their way, and I was a little bit concerned about them. And then when they went 1-0 down yesterday, I thought, well, this isn't too good. It's good. But they came back and won it. And you know what it's like in football. You suddenly get a little thing like that can turn your fortunes around. And if they can build on that and get the confidence which they had last season, I think, as you say, they're 4 points off the top 6. I think they've got a game in hand on at least 2 of those.
Yes, they have. They have. Yep.
Who's to say they can't make it? And like I say, it's a generous format. Maybe a lot of sports will look at it, and mind you, the NRL's not much better.
Well, the NBA. Look at the NBA. You just got to turn up. You get in the finals these days.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Mind you, you get paid a hell of a lot more than you.
Look, so I think also when it comes to, the Phoenix will be eyeballing that, just thinking when it comes to the finals, we've got that experience. You're right. I mean, the squad's changed. A couple of players have gone. They've had injuries as well. I just hope that the club isn't, and I know that, I'm only saying this because what I read from a lot of the fans, that they don't get fixated in this rivalry. That's one part of the season, and it's only one part. What's more important is obviously getting into that finals.
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be fixated on it. They're not going to go.
Of course you are in Wellington, your little brother, mate. I mean, you're fixated with Auckland. I mean, you're always looking up at us.
No,
we're
not, mate. We're not. Don't forget, I lived up there for 17 years, although I did go to Eden Park and support the other team, even Canterbury, no matter what. But I don't think they are fixated. Obviously, when the game comes up, they're going to, 2-0 down in terms of fixtures. They're, 0-2, as the Yanks like to say. I think that they're going to obviously want to get some sort of result to gain some sort of pride back. But week in, week out, they're going out there not going, oh, let's not worry about this game. We're worried about, 3 months down the track when we play Auckland. That's not the case. And I think that, as I say, the win there, I think, is going to really, lift their spirits and hopefully lift them up the table.
Eden Park, also the venue in March, of course, for the qualifier to make the Football World Cup, USA, Mexico, Canada, and the All Whites. We expect to be in that. And Eden Park, the glorious ground that it is, because it is the ground where I'm sure that your lot lost to a New Zealand team. And I think, you're probably the only English club that ever has lost at Eden Park to a New Zealand team. Would that be right?
Yes. Football-wise.
Yes.
Yeah, football-wise they are. But just let me point this out. That I played in the curtain raiser and we won. So
that makes up for it, does it?
It does for me. Although I was responsible for their only goal. We were 3-0 up. I looked up at the clock at Eden Park and it had about 30 seconds to go and we had a corner. So I thought, right, I'll get up there, do the moment of glory, because I was playing in goal the second half to help someone out. So belting up the pitch, they took a quick one, and as I was running up, I pulled a muscle in the jacket.
Here we go. Yeah, you should never have run, mate.
The corner got mucked up. They broke the other way, and there's basically an empty net at the other end.
Netter.
And it
empty
was
netter, like in the ice hockey.
But just as a quick follow-up on that, the next day I was flying down to Wellington for a few days because the next game there was a double header in Wellington with Sydney FC and Newcastle United playing the Phoenix down there. And I got on the plane and I was right up the front of the plane for a change, and sitting in the row behind me were Chris Greenacre and Andrew Durante. And it was did you enjoy the game? Not good, mate, not good.
You talked before about, a result like that for the Phoenix and what it can do for a season. The antithesis of that argument, let's pivot over to the English Premier League, is that my Man United have had these results. 2-1 at City, going to the Scousers, and Liverpool are going to win the title. I concede that already. They are far and away the best team in England, probably the best team in Europe at the moment, knuckling out a really good 2-2 draw where we played well. You follow that up by going down to Arsenal and getting a result in the FA Cup. And then you turn in a performance like that against Brighton at home, getting stitched up for the third year in a row. And United have been labelled by our new manager, and I'm really concerned about him saying this is the worst version of this team ever. I've seen some pretty crap versions over the last 50 years of Man United, and I just wonder whether, that is too emotional from the manager. We need some calm from him, as opposed to a guy that's just going to say every time we lose, it's the biggest crisis that is. I mean, he's meant to be managing that long-winded way again and just saying, this team is just going nowhere at the moment. We're battling for 15th. We need a prize, a special prize. It's going to be us, Tottenham, and your mob battling for 15th. Are United really that bad?
I mean, I've seen a lot worse players wearing your famous strip over the years.
Call.
But when he's talking about a team, and it's hard to think of a team that's more shambolic, especially considering the quality of the players that they've got. I went and had a look back in history to try and find some worse seasons. We'll forget about 73, 74. That's well known in recent history. But in 80, 93, 94, you got relegated. 1901, 1902, you finished 15th in the second division. In 1931, that's even better. You finished bottom and only won 7 games.
And you must have had fun doing this.
No, and in 33, 34, you finished 20th in the second division. Now, the one fact that I've found out, and you're going to ask a question about Arsenal, and we'll talk about them in a minute, is that in that season, the 1915 season, which was the last one before the war broke out, and they didn't play again until 1919. In that season, United, in the last game of the season, looked destined for relegation. And they had a 2-0 win over Liverpool. And I had no idea about this game. But that game was fixed. They were all 7 of the players, I think 3 from one, 4 from the other, got together and said, right, let's do this, make a bit of wedge at, betting. So they fixed the game. It had to be 2-0. And one of the Liverpool players, I think, got abused by his teammates for hitting the crossbar.
Well, it's a pretty difficult thing to aim for,
might have got us back in the game.
Might have got us, yeah.
Back in the game. So, you lot have been cheating for over a century.
Look, it's difficult to fathom, isn't it? Because as you say, I mean, this is a side, when you look at it on paper, the amount of money that has been spent on those players, I think that the fish rots from the head down here. I blame the owners. I blame just what they've done in 20 years of the club. And it just looks like a lifeless, listless club. Hey, we've had our glory years. I mean, any United fan, any true United fan can't be too miserable given the success that we had under Sir Alex. But yeah, this is a team that it just doesn't look as though it's on the improve. One game maybe, and that should kickstart a run, but it hasn't. Liverpool look home and host to me. Nottingham Forest, I love the fact that they're there. I mean, for you and me and for all our older viewers and listeners who actually remember back to the 70s when Forest and Liverpool knuckled it out for both European Cups, what they're called then, and league titles, and that it's glorious to see. Chris Wood, 14 goals already this season, equaling his best ever return, and he's going to get more than that. Good God, Miles, if he gets a 20-goal season, he's well on his way to hitting 100 Premier League goals. We've talked about him before. I don't know what more we can say other than he is composed, he's assured, and I'm so glad he's our All Whites captain.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, and like you say, playing for the All Whites, he always makes the effort to come back.
Always turns up, mate.
No matter what the cost might be in terms of his, club career, because so many players, if they're at that level, they say, look, I can't come back for that. It's my club stuff's more important. But he makes every effort, travels all the way around the world just to play for the All Whites. I mean, the guy's phenomenal. And you imagine, the job that Nuno's done there, we go back, he'll be sort of, revered as Brian Clough was. When they won the second division one year, won the first division the next, and won the European Cup back to back. That's right. European Cups. Just a phenomenal effort, and it's good to see a side like that with that sort of proud history coming back after so many years in the wilderness.
Also, it looks as though it's a fantastic place to go and watch football. A lot of the stadiums these days, they get rebuilt and you just lose that atmosphere. I mean, you know this better than anyone, from the Boleyn Ground to the Olympic Stadium. I look at stadiums like Ipswich, still Portman Road. You've been there many times under Her Majesty's care, I must say, as well as at the Crystal Palace Ground, the Nottingham Forest Ground. These are the kind of old school First Division grounds, can we call them?
Yeah, I'm old school and I love it. And I saw a photograph the other day of an empty South Bank at West Ham at the Boleyn Ground, which is where I basically grew up. I loved it, and it brought a tear to my eye. You mentioned the City Ground; it's on the river. It's a great little ground.
Fulham's another one. Yep.
Yeah, Fulham's brilliant. You can look over it. You used to be able to, but they've sort of really flashed that up recently at Craven Cottage. But I remember being up. Do you remember when old Peter Shilton got into trouble when he was caught having a little bit of hanky-panky with the guy's missus in the back of his Jag, and the geezer caught him? Well, the woman's name was Tina, and their first home game, Forest's first home game after that, was against West Ham, and I was up there. And the chants of Tina, and does your missus know you're here? And in fact, that game was the big laugh came out when Trevor Brooking, I think maybe for the only time in his career, got booked for a foul on Justin Fashioner of all people, and the two of them were just laughing, thinking, "This is ridiculous."
That was the Justin that came here and played for Miramar, wasn't it?
He did indeed. Yeah,
it's not Fash the Bash.
His brother John played at Miramar as well.
Yeah, very sad ending to that man's life too. All right, if Forest a legitimate contender, is anyone a legitimate contender? Arsenal still think they are. But Miles, I looked at that game against Villa on the weekend and I ended up watching the last 20 minutes of that game. And if you're going to win the title, you know that you have to do what Man City and Liverpool are capable of. At some stage, put together a run of 10 or 12 wins. I believe City are going to do that from here, but the gap's too big to chase Liverpool. But this is what Arsenal's failing, isn't it? Because they just don't seem to be able to do that. When you're 2-0 up at home and you're chasing the leader and you want to close that gap to put some pressure on them, you can't give up that.
Well, I mean, you've summed it up there, and you wonder what it is about Arsenal. So close in recent. I think it's 21 years since they won the title in the golden years under Wenger. And interesting, Wenger goes, Arsenal struggle. Ferguson goes, United struggle. So maybe there's something in that. When Pep goes, maybe City,
let's hope so,
God willing, will struggle as well. But you look at Arsenal, I think they've just forgotten how to win. They've forgotten how to win titles. I think they start doubting themselves, and it's like so many of the international sides, like the Irish until recently, that when they play the All Blacks, they just don't believe that they can win, no matter what the situation is in the game. I mentioned 1915 before, and for a special reason is that Arsenal, I believe that they're paying the price. Maybe not the curse of the Bambino, but another curse. Because after the war, Arsenal finished 6th in the second division, and they were going to expand the First Division from 20 to 22 clubs.
This is the history.
This is a great little story. And the two teams that finished 21st and 22nd were Chelsea were down there and Tottenham. Now, Chelsea were voted up. Tottenham should have had another one of those spots there. Preston and Derby had already been promoted. And Wolves and Barnsley finished 3rd and 4th. So you'd have thought it's either going to be Tottenham or Barnsley or Preston to get it. Arsenal finishing 6th, had mates on the inside, had mates in government. They had a vote. Arsenal got 3 times more votes than anyone else. They got promoted and they've never gone down since. Now that, I think their run of starvation as far as league title goes is more, not even more, less than they bloody deserve for the fact that they still shouldn't be up there.
Well, let's talk about the North London rivals. And as far as I think, if you're a Tottenham fan, Arsenal aren't North London, are they? They're actually Woolwich, isn't it? Wasn't that the place?
Well, that's where they originally from. They've been in North London for a long time.
How long is Postecoglou going to last? I love that moniker that he's. And this is what the British media do the best, don't they? Dr. Tottenham. They're calling it. If you want to get your season back on track, as Everton did, you play Spurs at the moment. This guy started like a rocket last year, and the fans were behind him. They loved the way he was playing their football. But like United, they've just gone right off the rails at the moment. I think they've lost 7 and 10 or something like that. And I would be surprised if this continues, whether he lasts the season in the way that they garrot English Football League managers.
It's interesting you say that. Actually, I quite like Postecoglou. I like his attitude. He's a bit abrasive at times. I love the football that he tries to play. A high defensive line, pressing, attacking. And I don't think Spurs have been that particularly bad this season. I think that he would have got the Spanish Archer, the sack, if they'd have stayed 3-0 down to Everton. I think he may have got a slight extension because they scored a couple of goals and came back into
Late
it.
goals, okay.
But I don't think that the charity is going to last for much longer unless he starts turning things around. He's still talking the positive. I back myself. I back the players. Whether he's deluded or not, I don't know. But I mean, they've got a decent squad. They play decent football. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's another curse that's come down on them. But I think another loss or two and he'll be gone.
Do you think it is over at this stage? It's not just Liverpool's to lose, but the way that they beat Brentford on the weekend with 2 late goals, those are the games that win you titles, and the way that they've stomped their way through the Champions League. I mean, after Klopp left, you always think, you always hope if you're a Man United fan that they're going to, have a couple of foot trips and that the new manager's going to take some time. But he's actually got the squad playing even better. Mo Salah, during the Costa Barbarouses, he's playing the best football of his career, isn't he? So this guy's come along. He's obviously seen those players, worked out a system. He's got them absolutely super fit. I just can't see anyone putting together that kind of Man City run that would be needed to overtake them from here.
I don't think Salah was that particularly bad last season. Or the season before, but I mean, he's certainly excelling at the moment. And I think Liverpool fans would have had a concern, after they loved Jurgen Klopp, and they're thinking, what's going to happen with this guy that we don't really know much about. But he certainly has. He's bedded in really well. I think there's still little wobbles to go, but I think that they're too good, like you. They're too good to lose a big league like Newcastle did to your rebel many years ago. But City, I've no doubt, are going to go on a run. But I wonder how much of Liverpool being that clear at the top is to do with Man City's demise. You can imagine if they hadn't had that bad run, it would be, again, the two of them battling it out.
Different kind of mental pressure on you as well.
Forest, I don't think that Forest are going to keep it going the whole way. I'd love to see them get a Champions League spot. I think it's the least they deserve. And wouldn't it be great to see Chris Wood playing in the Champions League?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's phenomenal. The next thing for him, isn't it? That'd be the absolute next step. A couple of topics to close it all off with then. And you're looking at Man City, and they had a 6-0 win on the weekend, signing Haaland to this incredible deal for another 9 years on top of the year he had. It just, kind of telephone number kind of money. I like the loyalty of this. I don't know whether he's going to be there for 10 years, especially, as you say, if Pep leaves and the side, dismantles or doesn't actually achieve what he wants to achieve. You don't know. I mean, these contracts these days, people sign for 4 or 5 years. They're off after a year, aren't they? But two things as far as they're concerned. Where are they going to go now? Because, I still expect them to make the top 4, which should qualify for the Champions League. Are we going to see the Man City we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years? Let's look at that before we look at we're a couple of weeks away from the financial fair play ruling coming out.
I think that we are going to see a form of the City we've seen in recent years. Whether it's quite to the nth degree, I don't know, but we're certainly going to see an improvement in them. Interesting you mentioned that Haaland thing. They sign long contracts so they can get more money when they sell them, because the longer the contract you've got, when they go, the more you can demand from someone else. But when you said it's almost a 10-year contract, reminds me of Sonny Bill. The Bulldogs, he signed a 10-year contract. Then a little bit later, he used his Samoan passport so he could sneak out of the country and bugger off to France.
Play rugby.
So whether he'll stay there long or he'll be at Real Madrid in a year or so, I don't know. But I do think we're going to see him improve. The financial fair play, they should have been dealt 2 ages ago. You look at all the sides that have been pinged, Everton, for instance, these sides.
And Forest.
And you look up in Scotland, Glasgow Rangers getting dropped down 2 or 3 divisions. They act quickly, and Rangers are a big club up there with a lot of influence. But I think Juve as well, didn't you?
Yeah, they lost titles, I think, or they went down the second division.
They got demoted as well. City should have gone ages ago. But in this day and age where money and influence really talks, especially the money, that Middle East, they get World Cups. They've got another World Cup coming. And it's all down to oil and the money. So I can't really see. They can afford better lawyers and push things off, a bit like Donald Trump. They could do it for ages. Well, I wouldn't mind just talking, Martin, about the bottom of the table just quickly. Yeah, okay, because those promoted sides,
2 of them at least look as though they're going straight back down, don't they? Southampton and probably Ipswich.
Leicester, I think you're talking about.
Leicester is, okay.
Yeah, but, Ipswich as well. They're all in the mix. And it's season after season, it takes a freakish one, like the Forest. Bournemouth a few years ago when they come up and they suddenly started making a place for themselves. But they get this parachute payment. I think it goes on for 3 years on a diminishing scale when they go down to try and help them deal with the drop and the fact that they've got players on ridiculously high wages and they've dropped down a division. But a parachute for me is not enough. If you want to survive, come back and bounce back and be legitimate in the Premier League, you need a private jet or something rather than a parachute. And I don't know what you can do about it. I mean, it's increasingly, I heard somewhere, $1 million New Zealand a week that Haaland's going to be on.
Something.
How can anyone sustain that? We grew up in an era where they were earning 200 quid a week. I
remember the first £1 million footballer, as you knew. Trevor Francis going to Forest, mate. Yeah.
Apparently, though, it wasn't quite $1 million because...
no, it was a pound less, wasn't
Clough, it? Yeah, it was £1 less because he always liked to bargain.
Finally, then, all the water leaks fixed, mate? Because I heard on the news today it's costing $117 million a day or a week or something for the water leaks.
Yeah, well, $5 million of it will be next door. It's still going, and in fact, it's in rampant
we spoke about this last year, months ago.
I know, and they've been here 2 or 3 times marking it all out. One geezer came in and got the old saw thing out and chopped up a bit of the concrete in the drive, put some dirt back in it. Nothing has happened since. Nothing. It's just... but that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as this beautiful city of Wellington goes. It's really gone downhill, and frankly, I'm not surprised.
It'll be called Man United next week.
Well, it will
just rename it.
Will do.
Yeah.
DSPN.